Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elle, and today I'm going to be doing a video where I chat about books that I would literally sell my soul to read again for the first time. I was inspired to make this video from Tori from A Novel Life. I'll link her video down below, but I was like, I don't really know what I want to film right now because it's kind of just like a weird time where it's the end of the month and I am filming this on Sunday, so I don't want to like film my wrap up yet because I feel like I could read maybe like 2 more books. So I was like, this is such a great video idea, and I think I've done this video before as well, but I wanted to talk about some oldies and some new ones that I just love and just wanted to chat about and gush about. So let's get right into this video. The first book I'm going to talk about is Cadence by Penelope Douglas. I had never read a book like Cadence until I read Cadence. So this revolves around our heroine who has just lost both of her parents. I think they died by suicide. And so she really has nowhere to live. She doesn't really have any relatives until she finds out she has this long lost like step uncle. Like they were related through marriage, I think, like they're not related, like related. And so she's like 18 and they basically ship her off to where her uncle lives in Colorado, and he has 2 sons. And so she has to stay with them, and she ends up being stuck with them the whole winter time, and they get down and dirty and do things all together. And I just remember like gasping and being so shocked while reading this book. I absolutely love this book so much, and it's like the first white shoes romance I think I ever read, and I just really enjoyed this one. And I just feel like Penelope Douglas, when I read her books, I have like butterflies like in my stomach, like, oh crap, like this is happening. And I totally felt it with this book, and it is just such a like took you by surprise book, but I just adored it so much and would definitely sell my soul to read this again for the first time. Then I have The Bully by Sophie Lark. I absolutely love this book. So when I started the Kingmaker series, I knew I was just going to love this book because in the first book, The Heir, the hero Dean of The Bully, he is basically in a love triangle with the heroine from the first book, but it doesn't work out, and we get his book, which is The Bully, and he sees the heroine Kat do something really bad and he holds it over her head. So this whole series revolves around these children of very famous like people in the mafia, of like different mafias and like the Bratva. And so there is this university where all of these children go to train to become future leaders in the mafia. So there's like different sections of like who is going to be a leader, who is going to be a spy, or I think there's one for like people who are like techie people. And so Kat is the daughter of a famous like mafia person, and she sees something and does something that she's not supposed to do, and Dean is the only person that sees her do this, and he basically bullies her and basically to do whatever he wants, like, you know, anything he wants and anything he wants like sexually. So they have a very unique relationship, and he is also loosely based on Draco Malfoy. And I remember seeing Sophie Lark talk about this book and saying that she really wanted to give Draco like a redemption arc, and I just love this book. I love how possessive Dean, like he is just next level possessive over his things, and I love how like Kat would just let that happen but also would stand up for herself. And I just remember reading this book feeling so giddy. I remember I read this book in a night because I was obsessed and I couldn't stop reading it. This is like one of my favorite heroes from Sophie Lark and ever. I just love Dean so much, and he just becomes obsessed with the things that he has, and I just love that about his character. This book is amazing. I just love their romance so much. It is so good. If you have not read the Kingmaker series yet, you need to, because it is amazing. Okay, so then I have Lawless by T.M. Frazier. So this is the first, like, I think this is the first really dark romance that I ever read, and motorcycle romance. and it is really, really dark. So definitely check the triggers on this book, but I just love this book. I was so shocked when I first read it how much I love this book. So the hero and heroine meet when the heroine, I think, is maybe like 11. He is with his friend, and his friend basically robs this gas station, and the heroine is there like looking over it while like the owner is out for like an errand or something. And so the hero's like, don't tell anyone, and I'm gonna give you this coin, basically saying like, don't tell anyone, and then you, in exchange for, I can give you a favor like later down the road. So something happens where the heroine basically needs help really, really badly, and so she goes to the motorcycle club and she is trying to find the hero, and she ends up like meeting his dad, and his dad basically attacks her, and the hero is actually in a really bad spot because of something that happened in the previous book. And so now he is coming to go get her and basically take her in, and they have to go on this like wild goose chase of like the cops are basically out for her, like she's a wanted person, and so he has to protect her, but he's also falling for her at the same time. And it is amazing. I love this book. I remember reading it, I think, in like a day, because it's only like 250 pages, but I was obsessed with this book. I still am. I reread it like a year ago, and I still love this book. I love how action-packed it is, and just like how shocking it is to read it, because there are just such good spicy scenes in this one, but you really feel how much the hero feels for the heroine. And I just remember loving this book so much and wanting to read it over and over again to get that same feeling of like, oh my gosh, is this happening? But like, I'm loving it as well. So just absolutely adore this book. Such a good one. And then of course I had to put Inked in Lies by Gianna Darling on this list. I just absolutely adore this couple, and it is such an underrated romance in the Fallen Men series. So this romance revolves around Nova and Lila, and I just love the dynamic between these two characters. I loved how they were friends first, and then kind of like hate to love, and then love again. And it is just such a beautiful story. I love this romance so much. You should definitely read this series in order. And I just loved how like they were best friends and grew up together, but like it wasn't in like a creepy way. And he is probably like 15 years older than her as well, and he is also best friends with her older brother. But I just love their romance and like how they know each other to the bone, and it's just, their story is just so beautiful. And I feel like Nova is also such an underrated character in this series. He is just like a pretty boy and like a Casanova, but he's so much more than that, and I just love this romance. It is so good. Then I have Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. I love this book. This is the first pirate romance I ever read, and I loved it. So the heroine, she is basically on the run from her husband, and she gets captured by an English like pirate captain who has his own ship, and she is basically like kidnapped by him. And it is a very angsty, forbidden, dark romance, and she's also a captain herself. And it is just such an amazing, thrilling story with so much action and angst, but it is very dark, so definitely check the triggers on this one. But I love this book. I love how like dark and gritty it is and different it is. Like there is a twist at the end of this book that I love, and it is just one of my favorite dark romances I've ever read. I love this book so much, and I cannot wait for Pam Godwin's newest release. She is going to be releasing a book set in Alaska, and I think it is a Wide Shoes romance as well, and like the heroine is kidnapped by the guys for something. I don't really remember why, but I'm just so excited for that book. And this one, I just love this one. I don't know how to describe this book because I don't want to give any spoilers away, but just check the triggers on this one. It is very dark, but I love this one. An amazing pirate romance. Okay, so this is another oldie but goodie, which is The Reigning in the Rule by Kalia Reed. So you definitely 100% need to read the series in order because it is a trilogy. And this is the second book, and I don't know how much I can say because I didn't look up the synopsis yet, but just know this book is so freaking angsty, like one of the angstiest books I've read. It is so good. So I'll just give a quick synopsis of the series in general. So the first book, the heroine, basically she owns an antique store, and she is looking at this old photograph of these 5 men, and she's just like thinking about it. She loves history, and she actually ends up time traveling back in time to like the 1910s, and she meets one of the guys in the picture, and he thinks that she is his wife, and she ends up having to stay with him. And so like she and his wife are actually doppelgangers, so they look exactly the same, and she has to figure out how to get back to her time, but she is falling in love with him. And something happens in the first book where in the second book they don't see each other for a really long time, and now they're seeing each other again, but he is with someone else. And so it is just such an angsty romance. It is so freaking good. I love this hero so much. He is definitely a tortured hero, and this book is beautiful. I love it so much. I love like the thread of mystery, because we're also trying to figure out stuff with like her ancestors in this time, and it is just such a great series. I would literally sell my soul to read this again, because it killed me the first time I read it, because it was just so angsty and I wanted them to be together so badly. It's just such a good book. So definitely go check this series out if you haven't yet. Then I have Culty, which is kind of like an underrated one to put on this list, but this was the first big slow burn romance I ever read, and one of the first romances I've actually ever read, and first book that I read from Nery and Zapata. And this book, I just love the slow buildup of this book, and how you really see them from like dislike to lovers, friends to lovers, then to actual lovers, and it is just such a beautiful progression. And I just love all of the little hints and like Easter eggs that Nery and Zapata puts throughout the book, because this book is so freaking long, but it is so worth the wait. Like, I love this book so much. I literally on my Kindle last night like read a scene again, because I was thinking about it, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is reminding me of Culty, and I love this scene in this book. But this is a coach and player romance. So the heroine, she is on the women's soccer team, in like a team in like Texas. I don't think it's like the official team of Texas, I don't really remember. But this guy that she's basically loved like her whole life and looked up to her whole life, he is this huge famous soccer player. He's coming to be an assistant coach on her team, and he is just the grumpiest guy in the world. He barely says like any words to the team at all, and he just has a big chip on his shoulder, and it's just like really grumpy. And he is rude to her at first, until they kind of start forming a friendship, and they start helping each other. Like, he will train with her, and they start like just spending more and more time together and start falling for each other. And it is just such an amazing slow burn romance. Like, I love how Nery and Zapata almost gets to you to the point of like hating the, like not hating the book, but just being like, come on. Like, she will literally wait to have a kiss between them until there's 200 pages left of the book, and it's like a 500-page book, but it is so worth the wait. And I just love how protective Culty is of Sal, and just like he always looks out for her best interests, and it is just such a great book. The audiobook is also amazing. I just love this romance so much. Then I have The Secret by Julie Garwood. This is a Highlander Scottish romance, and this is actually one of the first like old school historical romances I ever read, and it definitely made me fall in love with old school historical romances. So the heroine, she is on a mission to go visit her best friend in Scotland, and she's actually English because her best friend is pregnant and about to give birth, and she's actually a midwife. And so the hero meets her like on the way, and he's basically like, I will take you to them. I don't know, I think he's actually maybe the laird of the clan, and so they have to travel together, and they basically detest each other. And it is she's a very headstrong heroine, and he is like saved her like life and death situations. There's so much action, and they just have such a passionate romance, and this book really made me fall in love with old school historical romances and made me believe that I will actually really love them. So I absolutely adore this romance, and I just remember vividly like sitting on my like back porch of like in the summertime reading this book and just wanting to see like what was gonna happen. I just love Julie Garwood's historical romances. They're so thrilling and action-packed with lots of chemistry between the characters and always a very headstrong heroine, and I just love her like Highlander romances. They are amazing. Then I have From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was also on Tori's list, but I wanted to include this one because this was one of the first fantasy romances I've ever read, like adult fantasy. Like I loved YA fantasy back in the day, but I just remember reading this book and there were so many amazing like secrets revealed at the end of this book. And it is such a great fantasy romance. So if you don't know, this is a romance between the heroine. She is like a maiden and she is supposed to be kept away in this castle. Like nobody's supposed to look at her because she has these like special powers or something. And the hero basically becomes her new bodyguard and she falls for him. But there are lots of secrets to be unfolded in this romance, in the series. Lots of action, and it is just such a great, I love the first book. It is definitely my favorite of the whole series, and I just love all of the secrets revealed in this romance, and it just made me love fantasy romances. So I love this book. I would totally reread it again today because I just want to experience, like I love like fantasy romances when there's a huge secret revealed or something explained, and it is just so satisfying. So I just love this one. And of course I had to put Akamath on this one, A Court of Mist and Fury. I just love this one so much. Of course I had to put this on this list because actually, fun fact, when I first read the first book in this series, I was so mad that Rhys was coming in and messing up like Tamlin and Pharaoh's relationship, but this book is so good. So this is a fae romance series, and the heroine Feyre, she is just such an interesting character, and I just love like the progression of this series, and her and Rhys's relationship is just amazing. And I don't want to say too much because this is the second book in a series, but just know it is incredible, and I would read this again in a heartbeat. I just love this book so much. Love seeing the growth in Feyre as a character. This is just such a great book and such a great series. Okay. The next book I have is Kiss the Sky by Kristen Becker Ritchie. At first when I read Addicted to You, I did not love it as much. I didn't get the hype around this series, and I just didn't want to continue on with it. So actually like 2 years later, I ended up reading the second book, which is kind of like a novella length. And then I read Kiss the Sky, and Kiss the Sky is what changed everything for me. Rose and Connor's relationship is just top tier. I love them together. So this revolves around this group of friends, and Rose and Connor are, Rose is the sister of the heroine from the first book, and so they end up getting pitched to be on a reality TV show for their family because their family is also very wealthy. And the hero Connor and Rose are just such interesting characters. Like Rose is very type A, super freaking smart, and Connor is super smart, and he just knows her so well, like literally knows her to the bone. And this guy tries to come on the show. He's actually the producer, and he is pretending to be her ex-boyfriend to get more views for the show, but he tries to sabotage Rose and Connor's relationship. And so they already have an established relationship, but like Kristen Becker Ritchie are so unique in their books, so it doesn't really matter that you kind of like missed like their story of getting together. Like you get the background of them as a couple, but it doesn't really matter. It's just really them being together, and like I love their relationship so much, and like how protective Connor is of Rose, but Rose can also stand up for herself. And this is just such a great series, and I love this romance. I love this book. I would just sell my soul to read this whole series again for the first time because I had such a great time reading this whole series. So good. I love this one. Just can't get enough of this gaggle of friends. I just love them all. Then I have Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. this book just obliterates the heart. It is just so like hard to read, but it just packs such a punch, and I just absolutely adore this book. So the hero and heroine are basically kidnapped together, and they are kept under this horrible, crazy psychopath of a man. They are kept in his basement for 2 weeks, and so they basically have to do unimaginable things to each other and witness unimaginable things done to the other. It is just an absolutely horrific thing that happens to them, and they actually hated each other at first because he is the fiance of the heroine's sister, and so he actually was the one to pick her up from their engagement party because she didn't have a ride, and so that's how they ended up getting kidnapped. And so they get out of that situation, and they just have this unbreakable bond with each other that just cannot be broken by anybody or anything, and they start really truly falling for each other. And it's just so hard to read because she doesn't want to hurt her sister, but like nobody else understands what they went through but them. And it is a very, very dark romance, so definitely check the triggers, but this book is just so good. And I loved how they, you know, became so much stronger as people from this experience, even though it was a horrible, horrific experience. And I just like adore this book and this romance so much. It is so beautiful. Would totally sell my soul to read this book again. It is just amazing. And then I had to include one of my favorite Catherine Cowles books on this list, which is Hidden Waters. I don't talk about this book enough, but I need to. I love it so much. So this revolves around our heroine. She was a part of this really like horrible culture in this small town where they're kind of like this group of like doomsday people, and her father was actually a part of this group where they basically all lived in the woods, very uncivilized, and we're just preparing for like the world to end. Kind of like very cultish, and she was actually abused by her father, and now she has never really been in like the modern world. She has always lived under her father's thumb, and so she finally got out of that situation, and she is actually staying in the heroine's, I think one of the previous heroines, like house, and trying to like figure out society. Like she's never been out in society really before. And so the hero is one of the siblings in this family. I think it's the Hartley family, and he is coming back from like Doctors Without Borders, and he needs somewhere to stay, and so they end up rooming together in this house. And she is very apprehensive of other men because of what has happened to her in the past, and he is just so freaking sweet and caring and understanding. And just their story is so beautiful. I literally love it so much. And she's never she hasn't even eaten, you know, like pizza or junk food, and they explore all of these new things that she's never done together as a couple and really as friends first. And it is just such a beautiful story. I love it so much. I definitely need to do a reread of this one because it is just so good. I love Hidden Waters, and this whole series is amazing. Then the last book I'm going to include is Sinner by Sarah Simone. So a lot of the books on this list, a couple of them at least, align with Tori's video because we just have very similar taste, and I love Sinner so much. So the hero and heroine meet at this banquet because the hero is, I don't know if he's like a billionaire, he's definitely a millionaire, but he is at this thing for a work event, and he meets the heroine and is just absolutely enamored with her. And she's actually wearing like a mask at the time. I think it's like a masquerade ball. And the next day, the hero is tasked with going down to this construction site where it is actually a nunnery, and the company's basically bought that land, and they have to like tear down the nunnery, and he has to interview or talk with somebody there, and it ends up being the heroine, and she's actually in the process of becoming a nun. She isn't one yet. And he also realizes that she is his like best friend's little sister, and so they basically strike up a deal to have 1 month together before she becomes a nun to do anything they would possibly want to do together. and it is such an amazing story. I love this one. Trigger warning though for loss of a loved one and taking care of a sick loved one. And the hero is also the oldest brother, and he just puts so much on his shoulders, and this is just such a beautiful story. And I just love seeing like the struggle that the heroine has, where she wants to become a nun, but she's really truly falling in love with somebody for like the first time in her life, and she doesn't want to lose that. But she's like, what will I do if I've been, you know, building up to becoming this nun, like a nun, and wanting to be that? And that's what she's really been working towards her like whole young adult like life. And it is just such a beautiful story. You don't even know to the end like what she chooses, and I love this romance. It is amazing. The audiobook just is a game changer for this book especially, and it's just so good. Love this one. Would totally sell my soul to read this one again for the first time. Right, well, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed hearing me chat about my books that I would literally sell my soul to read again for the first time. And I definitely want you to let me know down below what books you are just like, oh my gosh, this book changed everything for me, and I would sell my soul to read this again, because I would love to know. But I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.